Kent asks, simple question, they never are, but we'll ask anyway. I live in Thailand, so does my mate. No super, just sold his house. Can you set super up remotely? He basically qualifies for all deposits, 860K and 120K to live off for a couple of years. I'm not sure what that means. Basically, if Kent doesn't have a super account at all, maybe he was self-employed his whole life and just sold the house, got $800,000 in cash, can he still log in and create a new super account and move the money with downsizer or NCCs or anything like that?
100%. Depends on the fund. But generally speaking, yes. The other thing that a lot of people don't know, and this is more for mixed nationality marriages, you can actually apply for tax file numbers overseas. So if you're living overseas and you marry a British or an American or another nationality, and you want to set them up in super, you can actually apply for a tax file number, which you need to actually have a super account. So this guy's, if his mate has a tax file number, great. If not, he'd have to apply for one. And there's a box on that application that says, why are you applying for a tax file number? And one of them is actually to establish a superannuation system.
Yeah, okay. And just on that, he can still, because I would imagine if we've retired, moved to Thailand, and we've got 800K in the bank in Australia and we need income to live off, we can still set up an account-based pension and draw the minimum and all that stuff living over there.
That's the beautiful thing about residency or non-residency. Your ability to access and all the benefits of super don't change. Where it gets complicated is on the other side. So you can draw an allocated pension out of super tax-free, all the same bells and whistles that residents have. Depending on the country you're resident in, you might get taxed on that. So because most foreign pensions, they are taxed in pension phase, not in accumulation phase. So if you go to UK, France, Spain, a lot of those sort of European countries, they will actually tax you on that pension account because you're drawing it as an income stream. If you draw it as a capital stream and recommute your fund back to a accumulation phase, different story. But there's a whole strategy piece behind that as well too.
Yeah, and to this little block, we'll tack on the question that Dominique asks. Interested in potentially retiring in France. I have a European passport. Apparently, I would need to pay French income tax on my super account-based pension. Is that correct? And I think you've just confirmed it.
Bingo.
Yes.
Yeah. There are ways around it. It's not easy, but there are ways to mitigate it.
Yeah. And then following that, Dallas asks, if you move permanently overseas when retiring, can you still use an account-based pension from your super? Yes, we've just discussed that. How does Australian tax residency impact this? Tax resident versus non-tax resident? How do double taxation agreements impact this? So just I want to put a bullet point on the fact that depending on the country that you are living in, whether you set an account-based pension up in Australia or keep it in superannuation and just put the hand in the cookie jar when and as needed. Is that a fair statement?
Yeah, look, and it depends on the countries too. You know, the US is especially punitive on SMSFs, anything that's a foreign trust in their minds as well. They call it a foreign grantor trust.
But that's pretty much, is that off the back of like it's old trust is British law and back to the...
So when they did the DTA between Australia and the US, super wasn't around.
And is that a double tax agreement? Is that what the DTA is?
Yeah. Correct. So right now, even in accumulation phase, if your super is incorrectly structured as a US resident Australian, the IRS can actually classify your Australian super account as an foreign grantor trust and tax it in growth.
Jeez.
So it's pretty bad. So you need to understand we call it two-dimensional advice. It's not just the Australian side, it's the foreign side that you reside in or planning to reside in to try and battle that out, because there are strategies you can do it. There's never there's never a 100% answer, but there's a close ones.
Yeah, so this is all pretty much get some strategic advice based on the country that you want to go to.
Exactly. Yeah, and it is specialised. So, as far as we're concerned with the Atlas Wealth Group, if you are going to Europe, Middle East or Africa, you come to the Dubai office. If you are going to Asia or the Americas, you go to the Australian office, because we each specialise And then we have specialties in those specialties as well too, of who you speak to and how you manage it. So it's not just from a client's point of view, but it's even from the advisor's point of view. The guys in the Australian office who look after the Americas, they know a lot more about the US system than I do, but I know a lot more about the Danish or the French or the Swiss systems than they do.
Yeah. So, for example, if I refer someone to James here in Australia, if it's curly and speaks Scandinavian and all that stuff, he'll probably go speak to someone up there. Yeah. And just in kind of this segment, I'll pop Bree's thing on the screen because it's an important question that I want to talk to. How can you work out what country to be a tax resident in when you get income from multiple countries but are no longer working? Please assume not permanently residing in Australia for this scenario. So little Brett Jr. has lived in every country that he can and he's collecting assets in each country. Well, where do we decide to be a tax resident in?
First option is, can you? I say that to everyone. People go, I want to retire to France. Well, are you legally allowed to live in France? Let's ignore the tax side for the time being.
Yeah, let's get in there first.
Yeah, can you reside in anywhere of the Schengen countries? So that's usually the first one. That's the first one that really is the make or break for a lot of people. So let's get that out of the way. Can you go there? Yes or no? Yes. Great. Okay, and then we work out what happens at the next phase. Residency is very different to all countries. Every country has their own classification of what makes you a tax resident or not. So Spain, and depending on the visa you're on, might be a simple 183-day test. Have you been here for greater than 183 days? Yes, you're a tax resident. If you've been there 182 days, no, you're non-resident. So people find it difficult, especially those who haven't joined the expert ranks before, about residency in terms of, is it the right of abode? Is it the right to get through the passport, at the airport, or is it the right to pay taxes? They're all three very different reasons. Most people will find they will base themselves in one location as their permanent abode, because don't forget, as far as the ATO is concerned, under the current tax rules, if you're a tax resident of nowhere, you default being a tax resident of Australia, which for some people it suits. So if you think about it, I actually don't mind clients who are spending a lot of time overseas being a tax resident of Australia, because I like to strip things down into two categories: principal place of residence and super, tax-free and tax-free. And I've seen that from the budget, even more so now. So if you become a non-resident, you lose the main residence exemption on your principal place of residence. Whereas if you retain your tax residency in Australia, you keep that. So it's not a bad thing. So if you want to spend 6 months in Australia and 6 months in France, then you might want to do 6 months, 6.6 months in Australia and 3.4 months in France.
So just put your finger on the scale of that tax residency to
exactly. Yeah. So, but the question you have to ask at the very, very beginning, can I legally live in that country for longer than, obviously in the Schengen countries, you got 90 days and any 180-day period. So you could be there for 3 months, but are you a tax resident? No, but you're not going to be able to spend 91 days there.
Hey, it's Glenn here. Thank you so much for watching today's video. You made it to the end. Can I ask a favor? Can you hit that like button and maybe hit subscribe if you want to get notified when we release further videos just like this one, whether you watch the Money, Money, Money podcast or Retire Right. And remember, if you want to learn more about investing, I've got an investing book, The Quick Start Guide to Investing, and there's a link in the description to get your hands on a copy. Thank you so much. Bye.